Hello and welcome. Before we get started on the presentation, I'd just like to say a few words. Some of you may recognise me. I'm Jane Harvey, and during the time we were working on ELAPSE, I was the president of ALL, and it was absolutely one of the highlights of my 2 years to be able to take part in this project and to launch it last Saturday and now again today. So I'm very excited to have representatives from all our partners here to tell you all about this wonderful resource that we've made over the last 2 years. As Helen says, please use the chat, please ask us questions or make comments. As you see, everything that we've provided on the website for you. And I'm now going to hand over to a representative of our lead partner, that's LFEE, which is up in Edinburgh. So over to you, Richard.
Merci, chère Jane. Bonsoir, hola, everybody. Nice to see you. As Jane said, I am in Edinburgh tonight, and yes, I am missing the Scotland game against Serbia, which is a key game because Scotland haven't qualified in 30 years. Anyway, delighted to be here and proud, delighted and proud because this is the culmination of 2 years, 2 years working hard with all these wonderful partners. You can see some of them, 50% of the team. All the partners are represented, but you can see 50% of the partners just now on the screen. And LFE, as you said, Jane, was the lead partner, but we've been working really closely with each one of these partners, and it's been a great experience. Who are the partners? To the left of my screen anyway, we have from Austria, Ron, from PH Wien University. Yeah, thank you, Ron. Just to the right, Diana, and I think Sandra is there, from CAFI in Galicia. Christine Pretzel, do you want to say hello, Christine, in Nîmes, I think you are tonight, but representing l'Académie de Montpellier. Our colleagues from Castilla y León could not join us tonight because they have a big training session tonight, but they came on Saturday morning when we launched here in Scotland. We launched it at the Resources at the Soul Conference. All our colleagues from ALL, I think you know them all, but Stephen, do you want to say hello, Stephen? And Krista, and Jane, of course. And last but not least, my colleague Nadine, who represented Paralanguage. Nadine, do you want to say hello?
Hello, from Brittany.
Who's Nadine's in Brittany just now? It must be quite dark and late for you. No, well,
yeah, I should be in bed, really.
You should be in bed. You got your pajamas there. So, and I'm Richard. As Jane said, I lead LFE Europe based in Edinburgh. So I'm going to share my screen now and go straight to the website and share with sound. Okay. Everybody, can you see the website? Yeah, thank you. So, dear colleagues from all over Europe, this is the address, lfe.net/elapse. All these resources are there for you. They've been designed by all of these partners in 4 languages. The idea from the start was to create ambitious resources which could be embedded in a meaningful way into the primary and secondary curriculum. These resources were designed for upper primary, transition into secondary and lower secondary school. So it's really, they were designed to be embedded into your curriculum. The idea as well is to challenge and motivate you, practitioners, but our learners as well. ELAPSE is built around 4 sections: embedded languages, which is an online course, which we will present in 1 minute. The actual resources, 21 sets of resources in 4 languages, will be presented in 5 minutes. Learning pathways to help you create your own resources, and a good practice guide. Let's hear it from some of the experts around the world. Embedded languages. So very simple navigation. Click on embedded languages, and it's an online course presenting what do we mean by embedded, what do we mean by CLIL and soft CLIL. In fact, Nadine.
Yes, Richard.
Chère Nadine, what do we mean by CLIL and what does CLIL stand for? Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire?
Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Well, we could be playing a game of hangman, which you'll probably enjoy when you discover the platform. But CLIL, if you're not familiar with it, stands for Content and Language Integrated Learning. So it means that if you want to plan a CLIL lesson, you need to consider both content and language. But knowing that you have some flexibility within that. So depending on your context, you'll be able to give more emphasis to one or the other, as you'll be able to demonstrate, Richard, my lovely assistant.
No problem.
Like
I will. Are you ready?
One way of thinking about it is in terms of hard CLIL versus soft CLIL. Both views include the use of a foreign language to teach. They only differ with regard to their objectives. Hard CLIL focuses more on the content, whereas soft CLIL focuses more on language learning. As CLIL research is evolving, definitions change and CLIL researchers begin to move more and more away from this distinction. However, it is a very useful perspective on how CLIL may be implemented in your own teaching.
So,
Yeah.
yes, thank you very much. So really, this is to reassure everybody that you have some flexibility within CLIL, that it's not a static way of looking at preparing lessons. But a very distinctive feature of CLIL is what is commonly referred to as the 4 C's. So again, if you'd like to start the video, you'll discover what the 4 C's are. Well, you can see that on the screen.
When we plan CLIL lessons, we have to think about the following domains: content, communication, cognition, and culture. This is also known as the 4 C's framework.
When you explore this section of ELAPSE, you'll be able to, of course, find the full definitions of each of the C's on the video, on other documents. But you'll also be able to see demonstrations of the 4 C's in action. And that's through the recording of a science experiment lesson, which was conducted into a primary Scottish classroom, and you might recognize the teacher on the day. So what we're going to show you is a demonstration of cognition. So remembering that before what you're going to see, the teacher has presented the language of learning and some of the language for learning. So names of fruit, structures to talk about floatability of a fruit. And now the extract that you're about to see, as I mentioned, will demonstrate what we mean by cognition in this particular lesson. So Richard, if you want to click, please.
Next, the learners test their predictions by conducting the experiment themselves. They record their results on their worksheets in groups.
La fraise, elle flotte ou elle coule. Vérification. Elle flotte.
So when Richard started, he mentioned the fact that some of the really positive features of CLIL is the engagement, motivation of learners. And I think that it's really demonstrated within this lesson with learners working on higher order thinking skills as well through their predictions and then testing of their predictions with very young learners. So hopefully,
Absolutely. Sorry, I was going to say it's
No.
interesting because the learners were about age 10, I seem to remember. They didn't know me. I'd never met them before. Some of them didn't speak English even, but very quickly they all joined in, and you can see the motivation. And as you were saying, Nadine, the enthusiasm was incredible. So embedding, is it a good idea? We think so. We're explaining there, but we're lucky to have a partner from Spain, Galicia. Diana, are you with us just now?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in Spain, a few years ago, 20 years ago, maybe, teaching languages was not necessarily very easy for you in Spain, but I know you've made huge progress. So how did you start your revolution in Spain?
Yeah, to be honest, maybe the problem at the time was that there was too much focus on the grammar teaching. And so students were lacking the communicative competence at the end of their schooling. So there was a big change in the policy regarding languages, so that it was more, as you said, embedding languages, starting teaching languages from earlier ages, from pre-primary, and focusing maybe on changing attitudes, of course.
That's interesting. So you changed your methodology, the way you were teaching, you started to embed a bit more. But what you're saying as well is you try to change attitudes in Spain, in Spanish society?
Yeah, exactly. Because we thought it was important to nurture a feel-good and can-do attitude towards language in general, and to empower students in that way, to create opportunities for them to practice the language, since the communicative competence was in the end the objective.
That's
And as
great.
well, of course, to involve families, because we thought that this is a joint effort. And so it was really important to count on their support and for them to have a good attitude and to understand the importance and the relevance of learning languages.
Well, in a way, that's music to our ears, Diana, because in the UK, that's what we're trying to do: win hearts and minds, and maybe try to embed a bit more the way we teach languages. Let's hear it from 15 years later, after 15 years. So this was maybe in 2005, your revolution in Spain. Let's hear it from the learners now, which is also on the website. By the way, I'd just like to say I'm navigating the website live for everybody, and I'm glad that it's working fine. So let's hear it from the learners now. These are learners from Castilla y León, not far from Galicia. And maybe a question to you watching this little video. Let me go for big screen. What do you notice? Could you maybe use the chat box to come up with some comments of what you see there on the screen?
I think that if we have the second obligatory language in the high school, it's very useful because maybe in the future I have to go to another country to study or to find a job. And
I agree with all of them because speaking a second language is very important for all the things that they have said. For example, finding jobs or do travels around the world. That is, for example.
Okay, I'll just stop there. They go on and on. Could we, Jane and Krista, I don't know if you can monitor the chat, but I would like to get some feedback. What do you think? What do you notice with these learners? And I'll stop sharing now, actually.
And while we do that, I might emphasize, Richard, from what you were saying, there are about 75% of schools nowadays in Galicia that are either bilingual or multilingual. And of course, I know it was a 10, 11-year plan, and now it's really bearing fruit. So.
Okay, thank you, Diana. Very interesting. I also work around Spain a lot, from Canary Islands to mainland Spain. And I would say about 50% of schools are bilingüe centros, no? So that's what you call them, Diana. Yeah. Okay. Without further ado, let's move on to now section 2. Maybe I think Krista, you're lucky. You're going to be presenting the juicy bits, the actual resources.
Yeah, absolutely, I am. But I just want to refer to the chat, and people are just wowed by their level of English, the confidence by which the learners are speaking in that video, you know, the articulation, the fluency. Darnell was just saying, it's just brilliant. It's amazing. You know, Chris has said, you know, the the confidence. Becky has said the high level of fluency. Mr. Faulkner said they are so good looking, and evidently, I think by that, I think he means enjoying themselves as well.
They all look so well and so healthy. That's what I mean.
Right, okay. Montserrat has said they're all at home. They're all at home, and this is really key, isn't it? Certainly in 2020, now we're in this, new normal, and obviously remote learning. Students can learn at home, and quite clearly are A, happy, and B, engaged and doing it. So that's what's been picked up so far. Is that okay? Can I?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, competent, confident, good looking. That's I'm not sure that's linked to the embedding side of things, the CLIL side of things, but still, it's agreed.
If they're brutally close, then they can eat it, and it's good for them.
With a proud teacher looking and being happy at how much her learners can see. Over to you, Krista.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you see my screen? Can you see everyone? I hope you can. That's brilliant. Right. Okay. So I get the really amazing, as Rishad said, the really amazing and exciting job to share with you some of the incredible resources. And I have to say, I'm going to do this live from the website. Now, I know there are millions of people around the globe not playing on the new platform console that's just been released today, but clearly on the ELAPSE website. So if it's a bit slow, it's not normally like this. On Saturday it worked beautifully, but today, because so many thousands of people across the globe are on our amazing ELAPSE website, that's the reason why. So apologies. So if we go to the ELAPSE website there, then and if I just scroll down, she says hopefully thinking that she can do that, then actually you'll see from the page, and it doesn't even want to do that. It's interesting. So you'll see from the page, there we go. It's catching up with me, that it just scrolls down to resources. So down to resources, quite simply, and you just click on it, and it's just going to take a little moment, but it takes us to the resources. This website is really easy to use, really, really straightforward. And actually, you'll find that our resources have been very carefully, and I have to say, very beautifully crafted by the team that you see this evening. I'm a very late entrant into this team, but they have worked incredibly to craft beautiful resources, looking at each of their frameworks, the curriculums from every single partner country, and to make sure that these are real resources, useful resources that are appropriate for learners, not only learning the subject, but also learning through a language. And I think that's really important, because we don't just want to have a nice whizzy bang lesson with some nice resources. Actually, we want some really solid, robust learning. And we talk in the UK a lot about appropriate curriculum, appropriate learning. We need to teach students pencil case items and things like that and hobbies, but actually we really want to get a little bit meatier curriculum, and the resources that I'm going to show you will absolutely tick all of those boxes. So when you're on the resources page, you'll see here it's there's the 4 languages. So these are the languages which the students will learn the language through. So we've got Spanish, German, French and English right there. Now I should say that all of the resources will just cascade down this page. So depending on what language you are looking to teach, then obviously you can use these. If you're teaching English, then obviously you can learn, you can click on the English button, and then there'll be the resources. I'm going to look at the Spanish ones today because our partners who presented at the SALT conference on Saturday aren't here this evening. So I thought, I'd show their resource. So we've got here 6 areas. So we've got expressive arts, science, numeracy, social sciences, physical education. And I've seen Kirsten's name in the audience and chat, and Kirsten, as many people who were part of crafting these resources with us and with the partners. So thank you so much, all of you, for coming. It's a really proud moment to have you all. So the appropriacy of these topics, then, we wanted to make sure that students had a robust language learning, but also really strong language. So if they're learning, let's say, for example, let's have a look at social sciences. If they're learning something in social sciences, or you saw their science or mathematics, then actually they are learning technical language that they are then expected to use. It's not just a here's some vocabulary, we're just going to give it a cursory nod, a nice lesson perhaps. It's actually really robust. So if you go into a science lesson, you know, students may already know that content and may be able to link that content. And our projects, the age range commences at about 6 and goes right the way through to 14 years old. So depending on where you are, depending on your groups of learners, you will find projects that suit your learners. And obviously any of the resources can always be adapted and differentiated to support your learners. So if you have EAL learners, the English resources there might be appropriate, but you might have to differentiate them. Of course, also, we do have levels of challenge within them. You might want to show those, look at extension activities as well. So the 21 projects then across the 4 languages, so we've got 84 in total, obviously used a CLIL methodology and soft CLIL methodology, to which Richard and Nadine have spoken about already. So we're going to have really meaningful science lessons, really meaningful arts lessons, if that's what you choose to do. So I've gone to the resources page and I've clicked on Spanish and social sciences. So what I've got here now is world map. So these are our projects: natural disasters, Guess Who, feudalism in the Middle Ages, oceans and continents, animals of the rainforest. So we've got quite a lot here. So let's say, for example, let's have a look at natural disasters. So if I have a look at that and show the resources, just click on this, you'll see there that we've got a planner, we've got the presentation, and we've got support documents. And if you keep scrolling down the page as well, you'll see there's a video presentation, which does also have sound. In fact, for this particular project, you've got a couple of videos and you've also got sound files as well, because when we were road testing this with some teachers earlier in the year and looking at the projects, teachers who were non-specialists, so someone like, you know, me, who was had Spanish on my timetable, but I was really concerned about my accent and I really wanted a native speaker. I was a bit, you know, I'm a French teacher by trade, so I didn't want my Spanish to sound very French. I really wanted it to be Spanish. Our teachers who were testing the resources said, please could we have some sound files? So there's a zip file there with not only the script but also a native speaker recording that will help you to just either use that for vocabulary, to help you with your confidence and your development, your pronunciation of Spanish, but also to just give your learners the opportunity to hear a different voice. It's always really lovely to hear different voices, and we know from for those of you who teach Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4, Key Stage 5, it's always nice, and students need to know and hear different voices, native voices, so they can pick it up in terminal assessment if we go that far. So if we look at, for example, if I scroll back up and we look at the planner, there is a full lesson plan here, because again, it's not just, I know there are sites that just deliver resources and you can just download them. They send emails out often on a Sunday saying, are you stuck for your lessons this week? Here, come and have a look at our resources. And that's great. But actually, when you come to the ELAPSE website, when you come to the LFE, the ELAPSE website, it's housed on the LFE website, but click on the ELAPSE button at the top, you'll see that, and once you've chosen it, you'll see not only the resources but a lesson plan. And this one here is a 3-page lesson plan. So you've got the age level who it's for there, 11 to 14. Here we've got, it's about natural disasters, it's going to be in Spanish. We've got the outcomes here, we've got the 4 C's that have already been mentioned, and crucially, we've got communication here, and breaking down language of learning, language for learning, and language through learning. And this is really key because, as we've said, and I've said so many times, it's not just about learners just doing this for a bit of fun. There's real learning going on here, real technical and scientific learning going on. We've also got culture there too, and obviously there's a whole guide there including language, content, guided practice, and what students are expected to do. There's a huge amount in there, and obviously this isn't just a downloadable product that you could then just use. You do need to look at this beforehand, but it's there for you as a teacher. If you're like me, who was a little bit nervous about using CLIL or soft CLIL methodology in your classroom, you can just look at this lesson plan and it tells you what, guides you. It's like a guide rope. It takes you all the way along, step by step, and actually you won't feel nervous about CLIL or using CLIL because actually it's all there for you. So if I stop talking about the lesson plan now, because obviously there's an awful lot of work gone into these and they are really exciting and really amazing. There's also the presentation, so the resource download. So if I just click on that, hopefully, there we go. There it is. And if I just share that with you, she says, oh, it's just downloading. There we go. It's just opening up. If I just move it onto this screen here, you'll see a really high quality lesson plan there for you with everything. The language, videos, images, you know, it's really lovely. It's got sound files embedded within it. So if I were to play this from the start, this is a really, really lovely resource that you can share and do with your learners. It's got obviously what the PowerPoint contains, which will actually also be in the teacher's notes. Often there are teacher's notes within the projects, and it's there for you again to just guide you through. So it's not just a resource. You don't have to then find the sound. It's all here for you. And the reason for doing that is because we wanted to ensure a really good quality product. So students, so teachers were coming to the website, looking at these resources, seeing exactly what they wanted. So ambitious content, you know, if we're looking at natural disasters here, something really credible, really technical language, but actually had sound files, had reading, had speaking opportunities, and something that was really, really memorable. Now, again, the same thing you'll find for science if you teach, if you want a science lesson, if you want a maths lesson, and it's not just about a nice lesson, it's a memorable lesson, and it makes students feel they're really engaged in appropriate curriculum and appropriate learning. And interestingly, lovely Stephen Fawkes, who I know is sat there, created a document for the roadshow. So if you went to Stephen's roadshow, you'll see here, you know, we've got lots of projects there for primary transition, and you can see the quality, you know, the age range and just range of subjects really. You know, we've got Earth and Continents, you know, maps and pointillisme, which is a lovely expressive arts project, animals of the rainforest, right the way through to my favorite app, which is very kind of, you know, something that students love and something that they'd be very interested in. We've also got here, you know, geometry and source check. So, you know, that in the world within which we live, and, you know, various people talk about fake news and how it's their word, or just making sure that actually our learners know that any resources, any websites they look at, which is a really, I mean, this is a really incredible project because it's just so perfect for right now, especially as our learners are, well, we are encouraging them to use technology all the time. And obviously the learners that we saw in the video, they were working from home. We want them to make sure that actually the sources that they're using, the pages that they're visiting are appropriate, but also that they're robust as well. So I probably need to stop talking now. Richard, Nadine, Stephen, is there anything that I've missed that I should add about these amazing resources?
No, I think it's great. Maybe we could,
right?
we get Christine to present le pointillisme.
Absolutely. I was just thinking
then,
before we get, yeah. Before
and there's plenty of questions which we can answer maybe, you know, at the end later on.
That's brilliant. Christine, so our colleague Christine over in Montpellier is going to share with you now some of the French resources. So Christine, it's over to you.
Merci, c'est mon tour.
Exact.
I share my screen now. Does it work? Do you see it?
No.
Not yet.
Oh, no. Yes?
No.
Oh no.
If you...
It was working last time.
It worked earlier on. If you click on share screen and then select the top left, the screen button.
I've got,
that's it. It's starting now.
Ça marche.
Yeah. Ça marche, c'est bon.
Good. Diaporama.
Diaporama.
Yes, I've got it. Thank you. So I'm going to present you an art and French lesson for English-speaking pupils. So I'm going to present you the lesson plan. So this lesson plan is about painting, learning, and using French language for pupils aged 8 to 11, exploring la technique du pointillisme et le mouvement du pointillisme, comme l'a fait un peintre français célèbre, Georges Seurat. As you can see on the top of the lesson plan, the level aimed is A1 in the European framework. About the age flexibility, even if this lesson is intended for beginners age 8 to 11, it can be adapted for younger or older pupils by enriching or reducing the vocabulary used and the artistic production. For instance, it can be adapted for younger students by further simplifying the lexicon and activities. It can also be adapted for older or more advanced students in French by making the vocabulary and the paintings more complex. So in this planner, like in each planner, you can find the materials needed here to manipulate with pupil in class. You have poster sheets, paintings, and a computer pour montrer une vidéo sur le pointillisme.
Bien.
The main teaching aims are about are here to understand le mouvement artistique du pointillisme et aussi composer avec des points de couleur à la manière du peintre français Georges Seurat. The lesson plan gives the forces: content, cognition, communication, and culture. About the contents and cognition. No, it was that. Sorry. Contents and cognition are explaining in a clear approach what the pupils will learn in art. Qu'est-ce que le pointillisme? The vocabulary of colors and shapes and painting equipment vocabulary. Learn a different painting technique, le pointillisme. The communication part shows plenty of language to be learned. Les couleurs, rouge, jaune, bleu, vert, etc. Le matériel de peinture, le papier à dessin, les pinceaux, la peinture. Les consignes, couper, peindre, sécher, coller. And about le pointillisme, j'aime, je n'aime pas, je vois, je préfère. Les verbes produire, inventer, peindre. The culture part presents the cultural notions and the class culture as well. Comprendre en France le mouvement du pointillisme et travailler en groupe pour produire une composition. And at least, as examples, you can see what pupils did in a French class. Teachers from Montpellier led this session with the 8-9 years old students in English. So it was for her to teach English to her students, to her pupils. So we have adapted it for your learners if you want to teach it to English-speaking learners. So here in Montpellier, you can see that one pupil on the left, colored the fruit shape, a pear shape, while learning and practicing English words and sentences, and while manipulating painting materials. Use on the left yellow and red dots, and on the right they use the red and blue dots. On the second picture, you can see the squares of colors with dots, top blue and bottom red and blue dots. And on the image on the bottom right, the pupils filled in a tiger shape with dots of primary colors. That's it.
So we could say, Christine, il y a un artiste dans chaque élève français. That's what you're trying to tell us.
Yes, and it worked very well with this class.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Again, it's great to see. If you stop sharing your screen, Christine, that would be great. Yes. We'll go back to it, but it's great to see some of the resources. I mean, this is live now, the website. Everybody can access it now. I know there are plenty of questions about levels, duration. We'll answer these, I think, at the end. And I think now it's time to move on to Stephen and the third part of our website, which is the learning pathways.
Yes, indeed. Good evening, everyone. Very nice to see you all again. In some cases, we've had several webinars this week where I've seen you already, so it's very nice to see you again. So just to remind you, we've made resources in this project for children aged 8 to 14. So upper primary, lower secondary, and the transition between the two. And they've been made for use in all of the countries of the partnership, plus any other countries who want to use those particular language examples, of course. So our European partners who you're meeting this evening and enjoying listening to and seeing how they talk about things have obviously brought their cultural aspects to the project, and we have brought our own as well. And as we know, in England in particular, at the moment, we have, I'm not going to say pressure, but we have interest from our inspectorate in looking at work in schools which is ambitious, which is challenging, and which is bringing to our pupils cultural capital, knowledge about things which will be useful to them in their future lives. That's why we hope that these resources will give people who have never thought about using a CLIL approach at all the impetus to have a go at it. They are ready-made resources, those 21 lesson plans of varying lengths, which you can adjust obviously to the needs of your particular class and curriculum. You can just pick them up and you'll find all the resources you need to go with the sound files to help you with, or your colleagues, with their language if they're not confident in the language, and the resources like videos and worksheets and other sorts of things that your students might like to. So the other question we saw earlier on, which is interesting for us in England as well, is about time. Time is a tight commodity in our schools for languages, as we know, especially in primary, but also quite often in secondary. So the idea that we might be able to save a little bit of time or borrow time from another area of the curriculum is possibly something that will be of interest when we're talking to our school leaders and planners as well. So as well as those lesson plans you've just seen, the 21 of them in the 4 languages, we wanted to bring you some of the presents, and you can see the 3 of them on the screen at the moment. So we wanted to bring to you the skill of being able to create your own lesson plan in the style of those lesson plans you've just seen. Those are very nice lesson plans, obviously, but what you want to teach might not be exactly that. You might have a very good colleague in the music department and want to do something on an aspect of music that we haven't covered. So the question is, how do you go about sourcing the resources, putting the lesson plan together and trying to cover all of the aspects so that you're covering your content, your music in that case, and your language, and making progress in both. We also wanted to bring you voices from around the continent. So you've already met the Spanish students from Castilla y León. And you've just been hearing Christine from the south of France, and you're going to hear some more of those as well. You're going to hear a couple in my session now, which I'm doing with Diana from Santiago de Compostela and with Ron, who's in Vienna this evening. And we also wanted to offer you some invitations, and that's where I'm going to hand straight across to Diana.
Yes, the invitation that we'd like to extend is for you to join an international community of practice made up of teachers from different countries. How can we do that? Well, by means of social networks. We have Twitter, we have Instagram that can connect us and join us in our interest in improving CLIL teaching. So now that you have access to these resources, if you try them out in your class, please feel free to share your feedback and to tell us how that has gone with the hashtag that you can see on the screen, ELAPSE.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on, because if this area about skills, what we wanted to provide you with in what we call the learning phase is the sort of structure you would need to be able to build up your own lesson plan. So to do that, we asked these questions, you can see on the screen at the moment, to people who wrote those lesson plans that are in the resources area. So we're going to hear from Ron, who did 1 or 2 of those lesson plans for you. And then we'll hear from some others a bit later on. But you'll see I've highlighted in there in bold 3 really important words to anyone who's teaching a language lesson. Where do you find your resources from? How do you think about the language you're going to be using in your lesson? You're going to be using as the teacher, your pupils are going to be using when they're talking to you, or when they're talking to each other, or when they're interrogating the challenge that they have in that particular lesson. And then very importantly as well, how do you help your class understand when you're talking to them in the target language? How do you give them the confidence that they can cope with what's going on in front of them? So I'm going to pass over now to Ron, who's in Vienna, and you'll be intrigued by his voice as well.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Hi, everyone. So usually when I go about planning a CLIL lesson, one of the first questions that pops up is, how do I find my resources? And obviously the beauty of CLIL is that it allows you to incorporate all kinds of topics from all kinds of subject areas. So it may just happen that you stumble upon something on the internet, or you could also go the other route and start from your syllabus, and then look what you can find, maybe on the internet again, or any other resources that you come across. It always starts with the content, wherever that content may come from. And that is very important in CLIL because the content dictates a number of things. The content will have implications as to which language you will have to teach. It will also have implications on the kinds of tasks that you may want to develop for your learners. And it will help you to basically list up the important expressions and phrases that your learners will have to be able to use in order to deal with the content and the topic successfully. So the first distinction that you will have to think about in terms of language usually is, what is the topic language, the language of learning, and what language will my learners need in order to do the tasks that we set them. And once you have figured that out, then you will have to think about how can you support your learners' language development and how you can support the language production. And this is when you get into scaffolding. And my colleague Diana is going to tell you more about that.
Yes, because really scaffolding is about providing assistance to enable our learners to reach beyond what they would be able to achieve on their own alone. So it's something that we provide temporarily, and which may range maybe from hints or feedback that we provide to maybe modeling or role modeling language or other things that need to be necessary in order for them to achieve that competence. What will you find in the resources in terms of scaffolding? Well, you will find some visual support in the shape of animations or videos, as well as sound files, and also some teacher modeling. For example, in the PE, in the physical education lesson that you have about acrosport, you'll see some strategies that are provided related to scaffolding, which, by the way, some of you did mention in the chat. I think Fatima was talking about that.
Thank you, that's great. So now I'm going to ask Ron to say a little bit more about his about what we put into his area of the learning pathways. We've got in here comments from teachers who did the planning for several of the lessons, describing on how they went about that. And these things are presented to you in different formats to try and entertain you as well as distract you and to inform you. So some of them will be presented as text, some of them as presentations, and some of them as animations or as video clips of talking heads. So Ron's just going to share, I hope, one of his examples with us now.
Right, so what you're going to see is just a short snippet, a short teaser of the kinds of tutorial videos that we have created for you so that you can successfully plan your own CLIL lessons. So here we go. Now that we have taken care of our first C, which stands for content, we're going to have a look at the remaining 3 C's, that is cognition, communication, and culture. Now, in terms of cognition, I always try to formulate can-do statements using action verbs stemming from Bloom's taxonomy. So in this particular case, I have identified 3 can-do statements, which I would like to put here. Let me just copy them in. So now we have a clear idea of the cognitive aims of this lesson. Now let's have a look at communication. So the first thing that you could do is you could try to fill in these boxes at quite a specific level of detail. So what that means is you would think about the words or the actual phrases or chunks that your learners will be using during the lesson. Now, language of learning usually summarizes the language that is dictated by the content. In our case, the content is something that they are going to create themselves, so we cannot really know what kind of language we want to put here. There's one thing we do know. They will have to use specific language in the process of creating their content. Now, this sounds a little bit like language for learning already, But since the process of creating that comic is at the center of my lesson, I will also put some of this language in here. So here are a couple of words that I think they will have to use and will have to be familiar with in order to manage. So okay, you get the idea. Back to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much. So now I'm going to ask Helen to go to the website that she has ready for us to have a look at, just so you can see what this looks like actually on the website itself. So there we are in the Learning Pathways area. That's one of the 4 boxes we saw on the home page. And then down below, you can see the different sections. There are 5 lesson plans in here after a little introduction about what lesson plans are for. So Helen has, I think, already opened lesson plan number 5, and we'll just slide down there so you can see how this one is presented. So this one, as you can see, is a video interview. This was filmed with Nadine. Those people who are AWL members will know Nadine from primary events. And you can see on the left-hand side that I have never moved from this city for the past 3 months. That was when we filmed this back in June. I'm sitting in exactly the same position with the same pictures behind me in the same place. So that goes on. Then you can see that in between each of the little clips, when Nadine is talking to me, there's an item called the learning log. This is where we try to get you to identify what you think are the key points of what Nadine has said in there, what's interesting in what she said, or what questions arise from what she said you'd like to know more about. And that's the way it proceeds all the way through. The clips are just a few minutes long. I've changed the jumper. That's right, Christine, I don't always wear the same jumper. I have many jumpers. I'm a man of many parts. So if we keep on going down, Helen, thank you, we'll come to the next lesson plan, which just follows on. And if you click on lesson plan 6, this one is just a different format. So in this one, you can see Kirsten, who's with us this evening, who produced a lesson plan about PE and all the things that go around PE. And Kirsten presents her information in 2 formats for those people who want to hear her talking. There she is. You can see it's a video clip. And then just below that, you can see a blue button. Oh, not so far, Helen. A blue button on the left that says interview. And that's what I'm going to show you now on a document so you can see the other way of looking at things. So if you could just stop sharing for a minute, Helen, I'll start to share that bit. Thank you. So I'm going to share with you now the document, which is what Kirsten wrote in answer to the questions that I showed you earlier on. So hopefully you can see that. And you can see that how she's exploring these issues, talking about the same things we said before. She's doing a PE lesson. Where do you get your resources? So she looked at authentic resources from the target language country. She then had to simplify some of the language and use some PE resources from our context so they made sense to the students. Thinking about the different language, you see her approach may not be exactly the same as Ron's, but it's thinking about the same questions. So this is showing us that teachers approach things in different ways and highlight different things according to who their pupils might be. And then the scaffolding, which is obviously a really important part of any lesson. So here we are, Kirsten talking about why she thinks it's important for students to use the language. So she needs to have steps in place to get them to do that. So that's an illustration of what that sort of thing looks like as well. So now I'll go back to my presentation, which is here. Okay. So the final section of the website, right at the bottom of that home page, is the one called the Good Practice Guide. And this is the one where we've collected views for you from around the world, not just around the continent, from people who are involved in CLIL and have been for some time, and who are now either very experienced with it or are experts in one aspect or another of it. So these are the sorts of people you can see on the screen there, but just to reassure you that they are people who understand teachers and students and younger pupils as well. So they're not academics who are purely in their ivory towers. They're people who come out of those towers sometimes and talk to us as well. So practitioners are involved as well. And I hope if we have a little time towards the end to show you a British practitioner who talks about a particular aspect of CLIL that will be of interest to some of the people who are attending.
Yeah, I can show that, Stephen, if you want. It's
we're going to have a look at the other one first, but
yeah, it's 10.2, just to let you know.
10. Okay, okay. So these are the questions we were asking those experts, the sort of thing that's obviously of interest when you're approaching your senior leaders and talking about how this might have an impact on your school. And so I was going to show here, this is again one for Helen. I'm going to show the little video of Sarah Pamplin talking about her lesson. I think I'll show that one first, if that's okay. Helen, have you got this one lined up too? There she is. So we're in the second video. Thank you.
This year I have been participating with my students in a big project between different departments of the school related with comic. I think that we were 5 departments involved: biology, geography and history, Spanish, English and arts. They had to generate a story related with biology content or geography and history content, but with the help of the English and Spanish teacher to tell the story, and with the help of the arts teachers to finally do the comic.
I would say the cultural...
Thank you very much. And then finally from me, I wanted to tell you, those people who are familiar with the ALL website, we have a new area of the website where you can read more about these things as well. So this is your main focus for this evening. This is the ELAPSE area website, which Richard showed you right at the beginning. But on the ALL website, we have a new area called the CLIL Zone, where we're gathering information about different projects around our country and around the continent of CLIL. So there'll be obviously links to ELAPSE and reports on ELAPSE in there, but you'll find other things in there as well. And in a few weeks' time, when we've worked out how to do it, there will be some video clips in there of Jane Driver, who some of you will know. I know Carlotta will know her, obviously, in Peterborough. She's at a school in Peterborough with a large population of students who don't have much English when they arrive in school. And she has a fascinating story about how the language department has basically made a massive impact on the whole school curriculum by planning a language curriculum to try and accelerate the EALP students to be learning English using CLIL approaches. We probably haven't got time to watch that now, Richard, have we? Because we need questions and answers.
Probably not, because there's plenty of questions, which is wonderful. So I suggest we just stop here, but everything is on the website. So please, you know, go surf, explore. It's all yours now. So maybe over to you, Jane. Do you want to ask some of the questions to us?
Yes, I mean, there's so many. The one we've had very, very recently from Tracy was about how much support non-specialist teachers would need to use the resources. So, Richard, I would have thought that everything's there for them.
Yeah, I could start with that if you want, because this is something we've been doing in Scotland in a way, embedding languages. As some of you will know, the 1+2 language policy in Scotland started in 2012. And Nadine and I have been developing resources to support all primary practitioners in Scotland along the lines of what we have now on the website. So everything is there for specialist teachers, of course, but also non-specialist language teachers. So all primary school teachers will be able to use these resources.
Yes.
Regardless of the level of French, Spanish, German.
Yeah. And German, yes. And I think so earlier on we had a question about having piloted these resources, but in the UK schools we've mostly piloted the primary ones because that's where people were asking us for resources. But I think in other countries that the secondary ones have also been used, in Spain and Austria, for example. Ron or Diana, do you want to say something about like, you know, how you use them in secondary, in early secondary lessons?
Yeah, for example, some of the, you mean if they have been piloted in secondary, is this what they are asking?
Oh, they were, but I'm thinking
yes.
more, I think, yes, they were asking that, and also to say a few words perhaps on how they work in secondary schools, because we've less experience in the UK of using this method.
Ah, okay, all right. Like the way we have thought about the resources for secondary in the project, where embedded within the subject that is being taught. For example, if it is physical education or music or art for early stages of secondary, as we said, they have been designed for those ages as well. I think Krista mentioned the age range is from 6 to 14. So, yeah.
And yes, you're right, Jane. They were used in Castilla y León in a class because we even saw the display. Some of the displays which we have now on the website were made by the secondary pupils in Castilla y León, and the floatability class, of course, was also piloted in Scotland, in Britain, in Scotland in this case, live, because I actually used that in a class as well. So I think it was Louise who asked that question. Yes, Louise. These resources were piloted, you know, in several countries, in different languages.
I think it's probably fair to throw it back with the greatest respect to Louise, who's now asked that question. If she wants to use that, because she goes on to say she wants to use it with transition in mind and work with primary colleagues, which is wonderful. So she's looking at it from a secondary perspective. And, you know, if and when you do that, please do let us know, because we would love to hear about the impact of this. I think it's fair to say everybody would, because it's you know, they were designed not necessarily for that in mind, but actually can be used exactly for that. So yeah, please do. Absolutely, it's brilliant. Do you want me to go with another question, Jane?
Please, Krista, yes.
Brilliant. Becky's asked quite a few questions, but so she said, is there an overall structure linking and developing grammar across the individual lesson packs, or are they all one-off? And I know Stephen said that they're all one-offs, but does anybody else want to add anything to that?
Nadine, maybe you want to say a bit about the way we approach grammar and some of these resources?
Well, yeah, in some of the resources we've developed, really grammar is instinctive grammar, or we don't have grammar per se, but it might be that we ask learners to observe grammar and deduct patterns themselves, but we're definitely not focusing on grammar per se. And also to answer the question, so no, there's not an overall grammar perspective. Each lesson might cover a different grammar point, but it's definitely not the focus of any of the lessons.
And maybe can I just say, this is also because this is not necessarily the nature of CLIL. What you get in CLIL most of the time is implicit grammar, and you would get that through chunking, or you would get that through using the structures with a lot of scaffolding in particular contexts. And at the end of the day, what we want our learners to do is actually use grammatical structures successfully. But CLIL teaching is not to be confused with, you know, run-of-the-mill language teaching. So there is a difference there.
I've got another, I mean, there's been lots of lovely comments from various people saying how much they love it. There's an amazing cross-curricular approach, and that their head teachers and senior leaders are going to love this in their school. This is exactly what they're looking for. So really looking forward to trialing it. And then comments about the purpose of this as well, and how it can be presented to others by Susie as well. So that's great. Janet said that she had to teach something about rainforest a few years ago and really struggled for high quality resources. So she's very grateful for what's there. Lawrence does actually ask how many hours of CLIL is being done weekly in, you know, what would you recommend, or, you know, as experts or users?
As many as possible.
Yes. How long's a piece of string? I think Jesus from Canary Islands said something earlier on. Of course, in the Canaries, they're quite advanced with CLIL. Jesus, do you want to type up again the number of hours that you do there? What I can say to you is that in Scotland, for example, in primary schools, the embedding takes place every day. And it could be even 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or sometimes more, of course, but it's the regularity, and we try and embed every day. And that's made a big difference for us.
Well, interestingly, Becky said, you know, again, this is right up her street. She's really excited about it, but she wants to look at doing a sort of CLIL approach, and is proposing perhaps 1 hour a week all year for year 5 and year 6. So that's year 10, sorry, that's 10 years old, 11-year-old learners, 9, 10, 11 years old. So, but what's your opinion on this? And obviously, Ronald, you've just said do as much of this as often as you can. So is 1 hour a week sufficient, do you think? Or do you think that all of the language lessons should be?
I mean, every morning, this is a primary school teacher, every morning you'll do the health check, won't you? Can you not, and link to COVID, for example, and you know, how do you feel? You begin with, ça va très bien, muy bien, gracias, but you can go much further every day, 5-10 minutes. I feel lonely. When I feel lonely, what do? I phone my friend. This should ideally be part of your daily teaching. As Stephen said, if we can borrow from another curricular area, health and well-being in this case, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we need to think of starting small, not necessarily go
Absolutely.
for a full clear approach in the whole school. It could be just one lesson to start with. And again, I think I've seen comments or questions regarding the length of lessons or whether it had to be whole units, where you could have a go with one lesson and just build on from there. Starting small is not necessarily a bad thing. Just getting your own confidence and spreading the word.
Yes, and I think on the lesson length, somebody's asked about the different lengths on the planners, and that doesn't mean you have to teach it all, go for 120 minutes without stopping. It's just giving you an idea of how many lessons this will stretch over, how much content. But it certainly starts small. You may not want to use all of it.
That's correct. Many primary colleagues will have the confidence in the content side of CLIL, and they'll need support in the language side. And that's what we've been trying to provide as well through these resources.
Yeah, and it could well be the opposite of the secondary, couldn't it, Richard?
Exactly, yes.
When the language is not the issue, it's feeling confident with the content.
Correct, which is why it'd be nice to work with a colleague. I think, Diana, again, you mentioned working with a biology teacher, or somebody mentioned, yeah, absolutely. See if you can team up with a colleague even. That would make a difference.
Chris has got a question on, has anyone got any advice on how to implement this during COVID times when really you can't do that high quality kind of pair work and that, back and forth? Has anybody got any, any suggestions for that?
Well, I could say I think technology really can help us here, if possible, and when available, if schools have at their disposal, for example, tablets or other means. I think it's the moment to use apps like Socrates for quizzes, or or WooClap, that allow you for children to participate, but with still keeping the distance and respecting COVID protocol. But I think technology is the moment also to integrate technology in our teaching, if possible and available.
And also what I could recommend is just use what we're using at the moment. Zoom is wonderful, in order to set up breakout rooms for, speaking scenarios, practicing speaking, group tasks, and so on and so forth. And you can use that at, several levels with no problem, really. At least I haven't run into any problems with Zoom.
Zoom or something else. I mean, not everybody in the UK will be able to use Zoom run in their school, but there are other tools, of course.
Sure.
I mean, schools in Wales, for instance, have access to Microsoft Teams, so there's different things available that you can do the same sort of thing with.
Yeah, that's right. Any other questions? Or?
I'll say there's lots and lots of complementary things. And Anne-Marie said these are great resources for teachers who are new to CLIL. Or indeed experience, so thank you. But is there somewhere where that they can share with each other any further CLIL lessons that they create ourselves, which is a fantastic question.
Where can they share their own CLIL lessons? Is that the question?
Yeah, absolutely. So once they've gone through the good practice guide, once they've learned this, once they've used our resources, and then they've been empowered to create their own, yes, which is exactly what we would love. Richard, from Transfer.
Diana, I was going to say, Diana sent us an invite. We're creating a community. You can tell that all of us here, the presenters, we've become friends, I would say, or very close. We've created a community, I would say, of colleagues and like-minded people. We would love it if you could join that community and use the hashtag, as you said, Diana, the ELAPSE, and we can bounce back. All of us here, we do use social media a lot, well, Twitter anyway, some of us. And so, yeah, please share with us.
Yeah, because I mean, I think what she's proposing is maybe to have a kind of repository where all these materials could be uploaded. So we could consider that and discuss that among ourselves to see, to find a way to do that, if that's interesting, or maybe ALL already has a repository where you share CLIL resources. In any case, what I'm going to do is right after this is over to share on Twitter, for example, repositories where you can download CLIL resources, because I think some of you were also asking if this works for integration in Google Classroom or if the PowerPoint is compatible, because sometimes it messes up. It should be okay. It is integratable into your Google Classroom, because as they mentioned earlier, all the resources are downloadable and you can incorporate them into whatever platform you have, whether it's at Modo, Google Classroom, Moodle, they can be integrated in your platform.
Just to add, of course, ALL is all about sharing. That's what we do. That's why we're here tonight. So one way we would share would be, we'd ask Helen to host another webinar in a year or two's time and invite people back to tell us what you've been creating, the resources you've been making. But also in the chat, you'll see the link that Emmanuel has just posted to Learning Through Languages UK, one of the other people working on CLIL initiatives on our behalf, where they have a resources area as well, where if there were hard copy resources or that sort of thing, we could host them there as well and then explore them together.
Can I just say, definitely, we have this room here, which takes up to 500 people, which we pay for the whole year round. So it's here. So if ever you want to use this room, you're very, very welcome to use it. And I suppose, you know, the idea about where resources are kept, I think very often what people do now, it tends to be that people will get in contact, as you say, via Twitter and say, click on this link where we've often got our own Google Drive or whatever. So that at least you can do that, can't you?
Well, I think we've had some great feedback, haven't we, team? I think it's brilliant. Krista, have I missed anything in the chat, or have we dealt with all the questions?
I think there's bound to be questions that we've missed, so apologies in advance. But there is one. I don't know if it's right to end on this question though. But somebody, and they know who they are, has said has raised the Ofsted aspect, and they not specifically as such. They have said don't hate them, don't be haters. They've just said they would be very interested in how anyone references this in their schemes of work in an Ofsted friendly way. But thinking of this from an Ofsted perspective anyway, from knowing people that have used and have looked at this, this is really ambitious content. It's there. It's an entire project that you can incorporate into your own scheme of learning. You can build a scheme of learning around this. So this is ambitious, real life, high quality technical language. Ofsted are going to love this. It's not got an Ofsted rubber stamp because we haven't presented it to them. But does anybody else want to answer that from there? We've got obviously Wales represented with Estin, and obviously there's up in Scotland too, and overseas. I know you have inspectorates as well.
Well, Ofsted don't have a prescribed methodology. They just like to see children learning and engage with their learning. And the example we saw from Richard teaching up in Scotland was, you couldn't ask for better than that.
At ALL, we've had Michael Wardle, haven't we, speak to us, and he's coming to the ALL January event in London, if I can put a plug for that. And I know that he's just really enthusiastic, isn't he? He's always pushing that to say it really is, it's the quality of the learning. So.
Absolutely.
Great.
Same thing in Scotland, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, Lindsay's just said Education Scotland love this approach, so yes.
Yes.
Great.
And just add on that note, as we have a number of guests from Scotland with us, Helen hosts these webinars very regularly. They're listed on the ALL events listing on our website, and Scottish teachers are welcome to join us. We're not at all, you'll get a lot of English references that might not be exactly appropriate, but we're very welcoming and very hospitable if you'd like to come.
For anybody from any country, I mean, just looking at the number of countries represented, when you just said, and here he is from Vienna, and here you are from, it's just brilliant, isn't it? We can use this.
And maybe we could I don't know if it's the final bit of this webinar, but somebody said, you know, I love to see Erasmus Plus money spent in such a wise way or whatever. This is so important, you know, particularly for us in the UK at the moment, but this is truly an Erasmus Plus project. Thank you, EU. Thank you, Commission. You know, without that funding, we could not have spent 2 years working on this. So let's hope we're still going to be part of this wonderful program, you know, next year and years to come. But yeah, I think thank you, EU, thank you, Erasmus Plus. It's an important thing to say.
Yeah, and thank you all for coming along tonight and being so enthusiastic in your reaction to what we've been doing. And it's so nice to realise that people are actually going to be going out there and using it really soon. So please, you know, do tell us how you get on and use the hashtag and let us all know so that we can really appreciate the difference it's made, or if it hasn't, then we shall have to do something about it, but I'm sure it will. Thank you very much indeed. And so let's, Richard, have you got anything else to say, or shall we bring it to a close now?
I think ready to close now. I was just going to say you can use the web address, the email address on the website as well, the LFE.net website, if there's any further questions.
Yes, and so please do just keep in touch. Join our community of practice, as Deanna says.
Yes.
And let's keep it going. We don't want it just to stop now. We want to see how our baby, if you like, the project actually moves off and takes on a life of its own. So that'd be brilliant. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Helen, for hosting us so kindly, and we really enjoy being with you. And I shall wish you all a really good evening.
And I was going to say, really, on behalf of everybody, if I can be self-appointed, thank you to you, because what a slick presentation that was. I know, I mean, it really comes across that you all get on so well, but you've put so much preparation into this. It was so slick. I was very nervous when Stephen passed over to me to do it. I thought, oh, I don't want to get it wrong because everything's gone. So really well done to you. Thank you ever so much. Really, really good. And you look at those lovely comments from everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
And I'd love to take a picture of anybody who's brave enough to show their webcam. It's quite nice to have a little picture of everybody, a little selfie. So, shall I stop recording now?
Yes, I think so. You can now, I think.